Welcome to the Remodeler Success Podcast, a show created to inspire kitchen and bath industry professionals to achieve optimal success in their remodeling business. Your host, Dennis Oz, is the author of the book, Remodel Your Digital Marketing, an integrated online marketing guide for kitchen and bath remodelers. He's also the founder of RTA Marketing, a pioneer digital marketing agency for the remodeling industry. On each episode, Dennis will sit down with industry leaders to talk about their processes, the lessons they learned, and how to find success in remodeling.
Welcome back to the Remodeler Success Podcast, where we dig into the real systems behind profitable, lasting companies, lasting remodeling businesses. So today we're in Massachusetts, and we'll be taking you to the South Shore, where these legacy firms have to balance their tradition and growth and also rising client expectations. So today my guest, she's the lead of a third generation remodeling company serving the region since 1960s, almost 1959, if you would like to be like a precise. And they recognized among remodeling magazine's Big 50. And as the CEO, she oversees operations, finance, and marketing. Those are all our subjects today. We're going to talk about it and what are the best practices, what are the struggles, what are the roadblocks, and those kind of things. All these episodes are giving you on how to get guidance on these problems, right? So this is going to be an amazing episode. Please welcome to the show, Alison Guido. Alison, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dennis. Thank you for having me. This is really exciting.
I will be hosting Alison, was like really kind of a big shaking moment for me. Since when I look at your whole the background and resume, just would like to kind of have an idea about our listeners. How would you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Oh, to introduce myself. So I act as the general manager of Almar Building and Remodeling Company, and I took over my family's remodeling business from my dad. His father had started it in the 50s, and I had this experience doing in vinyl siding installation in college. So that was my summer job. So I had field experience. I was getting ready to graduate from college, and I was in West Virginia trying to apply for jobs in Massachusetts. And my dad said, well, why don't you come home, work for me for a year? You can find a job, you can find a place to live. I was like, okay, that works out really well. And so I came home, and 3 years later, he kind of turned to me and said, so this is working. What do you want to do? And I had come back that first summer and worked in the field, and then slowly started taking over operations things. And my dad was great at what he did, but my skill set was somewhere completely different.
Well, this is an amazing story, but today we're going to dive into the big moments that you have in your business throughout your whole career. And listen, we know that the running a company, especially like a third generation, you have history, you have the expectations and pressure to evolve too, because decades will bring so many changes. Time is going to bring so many changes. And I'm sure you made so many important decisions when you are looking at the company's history. Some moments that you believe it's just like a checkpoint, and you said, "Oh my God, I'm glad that we have that decision. We made this decision in the past." I would like to talk about those. What have been the most important decisions you have made to keep your company growing?
I think it started back just when my dad decided to bring me on. I have a sister. She's not part of our business. When you're coming into a family business, the ability to work well together and to not take things personally and to be able to have that separation of where are you going is important. So I think that was a pivotal moment in what was happening for my parents' journey as well as my own journey. I had been in the business a couple of years, and we were trying to decide what we were going to do for laying out my dad's exit strategy and his retirement plan. And so we were looking at, what am I good at? What is he good at? And how do we replace him in that structure? And so after a lot of thinking about it, we brought in my now husband to kind of long-term fill his gaps. And he knew nothing about construction. So we started by throwing him right into the field. And we said, okay, you need to learn how to do everything in the business if you want to someday be the salesperson owner alongside me. So that he spent time being the guy cleaning the ground and then doing some carpentry and then doing some project management. So by the time he got into stepping into some of what my dad was doing in his shoes, he had a really good foundation for it. So I think that was another key point. It was a couple of years before we got married. And then we had been operating out of a third key point was we'd been operating out of my parents' property for years. Prior to me coming into the business, we had a commercial space. And then during the recession, we had scaled back and we were back on a dedicated space on their property. So, again, as part of that long term retirement planning, we got to get out of my parents' house. So, we moved into a new commercial space. So, that was a big separation for them, too, of work and home. So that was another key point. And then we moved into this space that we thought was enormous and then quickly outgrew it. We were there for 15 years before we moved to our current location, which we have now purchased as part of our own long-term planning strategy. So I think those are some of those kind of key moments. Another key moment was about a year and a half ago. We went to a conference in Baltimore and we came back and I said, we are going to rip our sales system apart and start over. And so that we're still working through that key moment, but I think that that has really set us up for good long-term success.
This is interesting because especially all these breaking moments happen also with the family related, because growing as a family, growing as a business is another, well, it's success. It's really making, when you think it's a big happiness moment, but it comes with struggles too.
Yeah.
That's why I would like to ask you. Our show is more like focusing on the struggles, Allison. So it will be more than happens. We'll be talking about those struggles. Let me ask you this one. I know that because you're working as like a couple, it's a unique mix of the strengths and also the challenges too. So how do you divide these responsibilities in the business? And well, working with the significant other is always bringing some, again, the challenges with us. And what have you learned about working as there's just like partners at home and at work?
I think that's really what it is. We're partners at home and at work. Um, we were lucky enough to, when we first got together in college, we had a working relationship. We worked in theater together. And at one point, he was my boss. And then at another point, I was his boss. So
I like
we
that.
kind of always had that yin yang going together. But I think that has really served us well long term. So we've been running Almar together for about 23 years now. So I knew I was never going to go back into being a carpenter. I mean, I could have been, but that wasn't where my strengths lay. So my goal was always to build a sellable business, right? So something that has a structure and a model where eventually, even though when we started, we were wearing a lot of the hats, we could start taking off those hats. And so when he came on, we very early on decided he was going to deal with the sales stuff and I was going to be the operations person. So I still deal with the marketing, the systems, and I act as our CFO, where we have a bookkeeper who enters things, but I'm doing all of the data analysis and he's doing all of the people stuff. He's doing the sales, he's working with our designers. And I think that we work together to make decisions, but the actual day-to-day stuff, we stay in our own lanes, which is really helpful. People say all the time, how do you work with your husband? Like I don't see him that much. We were on a conference call this morning and the person was like, oh, look, I'm so glad to bring you two together in Zoom, because he does his day, I do my day, and we come back. But we also divide stuff up at home the same way. I don't cook. You don't want me to cook. He deals with cooking. I'm a great cleaner. So my high C comes out right through the cleaning. So we kind of have organically done that divide and conquer kind of aspect of things, which I think really is really helpful. We make decisions together, but we kind of have identified what are our lanes, staying in them unless we need help. And then again, it's like you got to communicate, right? I can't be mad at him for not doing something I didn't tell him I needed him to do. So I know communication comes up a lot with the people that you interview. And that's really, you got to be clear. You can't hold grudges, and you got to say what you mean and mean what you say.
Right. Thanks so much for sharing this. I know among our like follower base, I'm sure that there are like couples trying to work together. And you just mentioned that balance for all those who are just listening, for all our people who's just tuning in today. When you just create that balance at home and at work, that's bring you the actual success and that integrity. So that's a very important point. Thanks so much for just giving us the guidance over here, Allison. This is great. Well, I'll take the conversation to the team management because yes, we are working as just like we have the C level, we have the management there, but then we have to build teams. And when we look at Almar, we have created a team that really operates like I'm sure that they have clear values, they have the communication between those and you since under your leadership. So what's your approach to hiring? And also, not also just hiring, because Allison, when you hire people, we have to keep them on board as well.
Yeah.
And what is your strategy to keep these people on board after hiring?
So about 6 years ago, we had the realization that we didn't have a system, right? I think a lot of this all comes back to having a system and doing the same thing in a better way every time, right? So about 6 or 7 years ago, when we were hiring and things weren't working, we kind of went back to like, what are we doing? What is the process? And we've been in the Dave Ramsey's Entree Leadership Program for years, and kind of a lot of people have come back to it and said, you know, the books and the recommendations. And so we read the book that talks about humble, hungry, smart, and how to choose people who align with your core values and that are going to be humble, hungry, and smart. And so we kind of started that with as our base, and it's morphed since then. We've elongated the process. It might feel like it takes a long time to get hired, but I'd rather go slow and then have the right person. And so as our team has gotten bigger, we also have included more people. We just made a hire 2 weeks ago, and it was the first time I wasn't involved in the reviewing the resumes. So
Congrats!
it
This
it
is this
it,
is this is big
it was
success.
it was crazy, but we've built that team, right? Like everybody knew who has come in. So our system now is I've got a little packet every time we hire somebody. It goes through like, what are we looking for? What's important to us? What are questions? And a self-reflection, like where do you fall on the humble, hungry, smart? So we go through the reviewing the resumes, and I've templated out every touch with a potential team member is just like an every touch with a potential homeowner. So we read through them. You get the first email that says, thank you so much. Here are our core values. Here's what we're looking for in this position. Then if they move on to the next stage, we do a 5 to 10 minute call. And, that's just to like, hey, let's talk to you on the phone, answer some initial questions, because we can cut 50% of people out just by the way we don't like what they're saying on the phone. So after that, then if they move on past that, then they either get a thanks, we're not going to work out, or hey, we'd like to Zoom with you. So then we do a 30-minute Zoom that's usually two of us. And that's where we're bouncing off those questions, those culture questions and technical questions. And again, we can cut people down about half after that. And then we bring it down to like our top 1 to 3 people who we think, okay, let's spend an hour with this person in the office. Again, you get another layer, more detail about who we are, what we're looking for. And when they come into the office, we do 2 sets of interviews. So you meet with 2 different people twice. You get a tour of the office, so you get introduced to everybody. We do the DISC personality profile in between the 2 interviews. So that gives those first 2 people a chance to come and say, hey, this is what I like. This is what I didn't like. This is what you should ask more about. So while the candidate is filling out their profile, we're having a chance to talk about them. And then usually that last 2 people is me and Craig, or me and the other person. And the first one is a technical person and a culture person. So everybody gets a chance to meet them, to see what they have to say, to see what they seem like. And then we never offer anybody anything at the table. We then come together as a group and we talk about what did we think. If it's a man, we always ask the women, would you be willing to be alone in the office with this person? Did you get any weird vibes? Because if the women in my office can't be with them, I can't send them to a homeowner's house. Right? Like we work in a business where we are in people's lives. We are in their home, in their safe space. I mean, I say it about the women too, but you just see it seems to be more of a concern sometimes with men, right? If I'm sending a carpenter or a project manager to a house with a 20-year-old woman and a baby, I got to know that that person feels safe. So everybody gets a chance to feed into that conversation about whether they'd be a good fit, whether we'd feel comfortable with being with them. So I think that has made a huge impact in the quality of our team members, their ability to contribute, and their turnover. Our director of production's been with us 35 years, since I was 9, well before me. But we have several team members who've been with us 9, 10 years. So even before this system, we were doing some things right. My office manager says she has a no asshole policy. So we literally say to her, what do you think? Do they pass?
This is amazing. I mean, this is pretty much like your own background check. This is a very powerful way of doing it. And
We also do that. We also run a background check.
yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. There's no question, but you're doing that in a really detailed level because this is how you really care about the culture of your company. Folks, we are talking about the culture here. It's just like really realize Allison is talking about like the culture of the company. Some people can really deliver exceptional jobs, but if they're not really good at like adjusting themselves or just they're not really good with your company culture, this relationship is not going to work in the long run. And just like Allison said, also like if you're bringing team members and since you have an A team, they also would like to work with A players, you definitely need to ask your own team members about what they think. And this is what we also learned in Allison's response, that is very important to ask, not to just by yourself, but also ask it to your own co-workers, not the employees, like your co-workers, because you're just a part of a team. And thanks so much, Allison. It's been rarely been discussed in this show, and you just really kind of really poke that really rare moments in our show, saying that hiring is not only comes from the managers, it's also like a company-wide decision. And thank you so much for pointing out that.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is amazing. Well, let's talk about a little bit of sales. I would like to ask you the sales process. We know that the main struggle here, the main problem here, many of the companies in our industry, they hit a ceiling when they're trying to convert leads into contracts because it's just like art of selling there. You know, you may get some leads from your website, which we will talk about marketing soon, but you may get some leads from there and you may have some people asking, maybe word of mouth people coming to you, but converting these people from like the leads to the sales, it's especially a little bit harder in high ticket jobs.
Yep.
So how does your process really look like from the first inquiry to sign contract? And what's going to help you to improve this close rate?
So what we do is somebody calls or fills out the form on the website, that they get an immediate auto email that says, thank you so much. Here's some basic information. And this is what's going to happen next. We're always trying to set that what's going to happen next with them, whether it's verbally or through our system. So then they hear back from a project developer, aka salesperson, and they set up the appointment. They go out and they do that initial like fact finding mission, like what are you looking for, what's your space look like, what's your budget, all that kind of like basic, we call it initial estimate meeting kind of fact gathering. And what we do now is, because we do a lot of design build stuff now. So what we do now is those people come back to the office and they put together what we call a project narrative. And that's kind of a summary. This is what I think I heard you say you wanted. And this is the budget range, without knowing a lot about what's happening, where we think we'll be. And that was the change we made about a year and a half ago. We used to do that initial meeting, then come back to you with a 17-page detail estimate with a price. And it was so overwhelming for people, or it was too detailed, that our conversion rates weren't great. And the team was spending a ton of time on it. So what we're doing now is, with that summary with a budget range, that's letting people know, does this even work for you? And in between those things, they were getting emails and touch points about us, about the type of project. So they would get an email that says, guidance for planning a bathroom, all of that kind of like stuff to help build the know, like, and trust even before that somebody got there. So the budget range is, one of two things happen now. You've got the budget range that either works for you and you like us, or you are sticker shocked and you go away for a little while. If it works for you, we do what we call a development agreement, and that's a small fee. It gives you time to work with the designer or the architect, depending on the level of project. And that's where we really spend our time now, digging into making layouts, looking at selections, having the trade partners come in and give us real pricing. And again, I know some of the people you've interviewed in the past have done the same thing. Like, we're spending way more time getting ready for the contract as opposed to jumping into the contract, right? So that everybody's on board. The homeowners are on board, our trade partners are on board, our production team's on board, and we're working out all of those fine details before we get to the contract, as opposed to just racing and getting the contract and then not being prepared. So that's made a huge impact. The thing I'm struggling with, because it's so new, is I have 22 years worth of sales data. It's kind of gotten thrown out the door with how many people do I need to talk to do this many leads? It's all in flux now, because we're selling more jobs at higher dollar volumes, but I need less people because we're spending quality time with people. It's not quantity, it's quality. And that's freaking me out, because I like the data. I'm a C. I'm like, I needed 300 leads before to sell this much, and now I need half of that. But I think it's doing us and our team a lot of good, because we're not throwing as much spaghetti against the wall all the time. And we're building much stronger relationships with people before we're asking them to sign a contract for $300,000, $400,000, $800,000, $1 million.
Wow. Well, this is a great example of how little things change big impacts. So those little things create like really big impact there. And I'm glad that you also have this vision. And folks, you see, this show is all about talking about these aha moments. And I'm glad that you already just witnessed another one here. So this is great. Thanks so much for sharing this one. And
Of course.
this is those moments are what making this show great. And that was one of them. Well, let's talk about AI, Allison.
Okay.
There are a lot of buzz. Like, people
A
are doing
lot.
that, like writing emails and different things. I even see people going into houses and then recording the conversation, creating the quotes based on AI. So based on what the customer says, and there are different approaches to this AI world. How do you integrate AI to your business, and what's your, I would say, expectations from AI when you look at the future? If AI does this, that will be great type of ideas. How do you use it now, and how would you like to use it in the future?
Yeah, so we use it now. It's terrifying and amazing at the same time, right? So I started using it by at going back. We have like 300 blogs on our website, and when we converted to our new website, they didn't all convert over well. So I started with it by trying to like throw the blog into the website, have it clean it up, make it into the new format for me, which is really helpful. So that's, and like everybody else, I'm using it for, this is what I want to say. Can you make this sound nice so that people don't hate me? Kind of stuff. But we've also started converting into things like those project narratives I talked about. It's helping us put together those. This is what we heard the homeowner say we wanted. Like what needs to be included in this summary. We also are utilizing the AI apps. We have an app that records our homeowner meetings and our production meetings and spits back out that summary. What
You can mention name. Is that Rilla? What is?
we're using Otter.
Oh,
And
okay,
so
Otter. Yeah.
that's worked out really well for us. We've tried a couple of different ones, but Otter has worked out really well. And what we've just kind of tested and realized with Otter, and I'm sure other ones do it too, is we can, within its own AI, we can ask it to review all of the client appointments and give us a summary of how we're doing or how we should approach things.
Here we
So
go.
in terms of the sales team, we can go back through all of their recorded sales calls and say where are they strong and where could they improve. And we started it with my husband Craig, and the things it kicked back out were the things I've always said. You're not great at setting next steps. You know, you would do better to, based on the recordings, you would do better. And it's almost like having that mentor with you. Especially in instances where you're not going to have a second person. When he first started, I would go on sales calls with him and I would do that. I'd be like, hey, so next time, maybe if you did this, it's kind of like the Apple Watch. I got him the Apple Watch so that, you know, instead of me saying, hey, do you want to go for a walk? The watch is telling me he has to do it. So AI is great for some kind of that backup, especially when you're a husband and wife team. I'm not the one nagging. The app is the one that told you that.
I
So,
think you
and it's helped.
created a yeah. I think you created another board member with AI in your company. Can we say that?
Yeah, it's really interesting, especially if how you use it, right? So I was at at the Women in Residential Construction conference a couple of weeks ago, and there was a whole panel on it. And one of the women was talking about how they create a file in their AI for their clients, and they dump all of the information into it, emails, estimates, and then ask it questions, especially if change orders are coming up. Based on what's in here, how would the homeowner respond, or how should I approach it? I tried it where we took all of our trade partner estimates for one of our projects and our internal estimate and scope of work and put it all in and said, is there anywhere where have something in the scope of work that isn't addressed in the budget? Or do you see any? And it missed things. It's still learning, but it was really interesting for the things that it did pull out. It's, you know, for me to just compare and contrast, just using it as another tool to make us better. Some people think it's going to replace people. In some instances it will, but it is also making our systems better. And there are things that I inherently know that it's not going to know. So there's a lot of scary and amazing applications to it.
Great. This is amazing. I was going to ask the next question about marketing since it will be a great follow up, but I have another question.
Sure.
Well, you are mentioning all these conferences, Allison. This is great. You're investing your time, you're booking that plane ticket, going there, spending time with peers. I'm sure that you find it helpful because you share like a big time on these. You're going to Baltimore from Massachusetts, you're going to the conference for women, just like you mentioned. How does it change your business? Let me ask you in this way. Do you go there, you learn, and you come back and you believe that is like a big change? Because I would like to also encourage our listeners to go there as well.
Yeah.
And just would like to learn your real benefits from these conferences here.
I think that we as business owners and especially remodelers sometimes get so busy being busy, we can't get out of our own way. And I think that if we want to grow and learn and build professional companies, continuing education is super important. That was like the first thing my dad taught me. I would come home from college and go to the Journal of Light Construction's, the JLC Live conference with him, I think 3 years in a row. And in some ways, I felt like I got so much more practical knowledge out of that day and a half with them than I did in college. There were so many other good things, but like, and I think that's probably when he started to realize, oh, maybe Allison's going to come into the business. Cause I'd be like, oh, we could do this. Oh, we could do that. I'd be back in West Virginia in my dorm and be like sending him ideas of like things that we could be doing. I think that, yeah, I think that it's so valuable. If you get one good actionable idea out of anything you do, it's worth your time, right? So we went to the Pinnacle Experience in Baltimore, and I had never heard of it. The conference reached out to me and asked if I'd come and facilitate. And they were like, we'll cover your ticket, come. And I was like, okay, why not? You got to take advantage of the opportunities that are given to you, right? So we got to participate in the whole conference. And for years, I knew we needed to do something with our sales system, but I didn't know what or how to get started. And we're sitting in one of the roundtable groups, and one of the guys is presenting. And I said, that's it. That's how we get started. And we went up and we talked to him afterwards, and he was like, yeah, I'll walk you through exactly how to do it. And when you're in these conferences, the local associations are great, but you're meeting with people who are competitors, right? They
Right.
don't want to tell you their secret sauce.
Yeah, but then you have a moment that they started to share, right?
Yeah. So
That's
you're at this
great.
conference in Baltimore, and this guy from Virginia doesn't care what I'm doing in Boston. So he's like, I'm happy to tell you. And one of the big things we talked about at the conference in Austin for the women in residential construction was, less than 10% of the industry is women, right? So you walk into that room and everybody wants to help you. Everybody wants you to succeed. There's just this like energy in there that you don't get other places. And one of the things one of the panels was talking about this time, because they were all women who had been through natural disasters, the Hawaii fires, Katrina, the California fires. And they were talking about being able to build a resource network outside of your area before there's an emergency. So they were talking about how, because they had resources outside of their natural disaster area, they were able to pull off of them. And I thought to myself, oh my God, that's an amazing idea. We can learn from each other. But God forbid we have something where we need each other too. We've already built these connections because we've taken 2 or 3 days to get out of our business to work on our business.
That's amazing. So for all our listeners or who are just maybe watching, just understand how important that is to be surrounded with people that is also make the mistakes that you will make. They already walk the walk, folks. They already made all these mistakes, all the scars in their faces, and all the gray hairs. I always use that analogy. Yeah. So
There's
yeah,
no reason for us to reinvent the wheel, right?
right,
Somebody's already made the mistake. If we can
right.
learn from it, we're going to make plenty of our own. But if we can learn from somebody else's or share what we've done, let's make it a little bit easier for everybody.
That's right. Amazing, Sherry. Thanks so much for this one. And let me bring the conversation to the marketing talk. Well, I'm not going to let Allison go, folks. I'm holding here as much as I can, all right? That's an amazing conversation. I'm sure you guys are enjoying the conversation as much as I do here. And this is great. This is a great session. Well, let's talk about a little bit of marketing. We know that when you have platforms and like at the same time, sometimes clients' behaviors are also changing. And it's bringing us challenges to the marketing. The things that we have that we are doing in the past may not work today. And the things that we are doing today may not work in the future. And marketing is always changing. How do you keep up the business with these kind of all these changes? And how do you play the marketing game?
Oh, it's hard, right? Because even it's not that they lie, it's that they don't even know. When someone calls, like we always ask, right? That's the best way to gauge what's working, what's not. But they'll say, oh, I don't know, a referral or this or that. And then I look back through my CRM and I'm like, well, you found me on the internet, but you've been getting mailers from me for 10 years. So you got to do a little bit of everything. And so early on, I said, we've got to do a little bit of everything. And so when I make our marketing plan, I have things broken up by month, and I've just got categories. I've got, so the social media category, the internet category, the direct mail category. So we try to hit something every month in every category, whether that's, the videos online or the social media. I don't do cold postcards. I do like somehow we've connected or touched, or I've been in your neighborhood. One thing that works really well for us is we do what we call move over letters, because in the 70s, that's what it was called, in the system my dad bought, because we wanted to move from this house over to your house. So we still call them move over letters, but literally it's just a letter that goes to all of the houses on the street that we're working on that says, hi, we're going to be working on your street. You're going to see trucks you don't know. You're going to see people you don't know. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. 90% of the time, people love that. Every now and then we get a call from somebody, don't park on my lawn. But I feel like it gives the neighborhood a sense of comfort. And also people will call us and say, because they'll be watching us, and it adds to that level of know, like, and trust, because we reached out, we told you what we were going to do. We told you we were going to be there. So yeah, we do a little bit of everything. We do a lot of networking. 90% of our work comes from referrals and networking. So
Amazing.
Wow. Yeah.
That's perfect. Well, we know the power of referrals.
There's no silver bullet, and that's the problem. We all want to just be like, I'm going to throw a $10,000 over here and that's going to work. And just after 20 years, it just doesn't.
Yeah. Well, this is always like the biggest struggle, since I'm in the marketing game for many, many years, and I've been also like exposed to that question a lot. What's working today?
Mm-hmm.
Giving that answer at that time doesn't really make any much more like a sense. It's just working today. But the thing that we do is just like an agency last year is pretty much like different when we look at what we do today. So because the game is changing, because clients are changing, folks, you're here, you're listening, the generations are changing. Right now, millennials will start asking for sometimes remodeling projects and coming to you, right? When we look at our ideal buyer avatar, they are kind of more than like middle age. You don't target young 25-year-old, like young professionals, or those. They will always be like an opportunities over there. I don't say there's nothing there, but there is the most of the opportunities. Just like you think about your last 10 sales, I'm sure they are like, it will give you an age group. So, and now different age group, just different generation is just getting to that age group. I'm just like a millennial, and right now I'm just thinking about like, renovations right now. So this is how it works. And just like Allison said, the things that has been working like 3 decades ago, the generation looking for something, the name, even the marketing material is just really reacts to that avatar. So this is how you play this game. And Allison, this is great to share. It's a great share. Thanks so much. And for just like you said, referrals are your fuel for your business, folks. Yes, your referrals are your fuel. They're your raving fans.
You've got to work them. You've got in terms of marketing, like we still go back and touch our past clients. We have to remind them that we're here to serve them. So you still have to market to them, because that's how you out of sight, out of mind, right?
Right. Well, thanks so much for this great share. Wow. Let's wrap up. I don't want you to go, Allison, but yeah, this is an amazing conversation. So
we could talk forever.
Yeah, this is perfect. This is one of the amazing sessions that we're having. Well, I just have a last question. Like the most important thing when you believe that someone who is in this for maybe like in years and they couldn't really find success, they're struggling in different places. What's the one piece of advice you will give to a remodeler or like a company, construction company, who wants the business that lasts and succeed?
I think that's challenging, because a lot of people get into remodeling because they're really good carpenters. The turnover rate in remodeling is not because people aren't good at what they do. It's because they're not good at business, and they're not good at creating systems. And I think that's what's a little bit different about us, because you don't want Craig and me necessarily going out and hanging your door, but we understand people and we understand the numbers. And I think that even if it's not something you're doing, finding the right person to help you with the numbers, help you understand your numbers and understand how to price and how to manage your money. And if it's not something you can do, that person has to be able to explain it to you in a way that you can understand. I think we talked about this, you've talked about this on other episodes, where, they get that deposit and they think they've got all this money, but so they go out and buy a brand new truck, but then you still have to produce the job. You still have to pay your overhead. And so it's a matter of contractors go out of business not because they're not good contractors. I mean, some of them aren't, but because they don't understand the business aspect of it. And at the end of the day, we're all doing this because we want to make more money and take more time off. And the companies that are professional are considered professional because they're running it like a business and not like a hobby. And so I think that's the hard thing for a lot of people who decide that they can get into business, because they're looking at they might have been with a professional company and said, well, I can do that, I'm doing all the work. But they don't see all the things that go into it to actually run a business. So understanding or getting someone to partner with you who can help you understand the numbers and what your true costs are so that you can make a profit is really important.
Thank you so much for dropping this knowledge and all your golden nuggets today. That was a great session. Alison, I have one last question, because this is a question not from the, most of our listeners are business owners, but sometimes some homeowners are really tuning in, even someone who just really would like to work with you. They would like to learn more about you, because remember, folks, these people will spend thousands of dollars with you. They would like to understand it's just like a business owner, just because they are buying a service from you more than product, right?
Yeah.
Let's say if they come to you, if someone like a prospect comes to you and would like to get information from you, this is your moment to pitch your business in the show. What makes Almar great? So just let's talk about it.
I think what makes Almar great is that we really are focused on communication and being honest. We talk a lot with our team about giving good information, whether it's to those in leadership, whether it's to those within or without our team. I'm not going to be the right fit for everybody. And that's okay. But I want people to make safe decisions, hire reputable people. Our website has 300 blog articles on it about questions to ask, how to plan, things to look out for. And that's more so that people can make safe choices. We get a lot of people who come to us the second time. We're either too expensive or don't fit their needs the first time around. And then they realize, oh, we really probably were a better choice, which is a great honor. But also I feel horrible that they had to go through that experience to learn it. So I think we really try to communicate. I think that that's both our strength and our weakness, because you can always get better, and give people good information and good advice.
That was a session that really talks to everyone. Thank you so much, Alison. If someone has maybe a follow-up question, let's not share a personal number. This is going to be distributed to thousands of people, but whether the website is the best way to go, even the homeowner or like a business owner.
Yeah, you can reach us through almarbuilding.com or on our that's our website, or email at almar@almarbuilding.com. Those are probably the two easiest ways to reach us, but we're everywhere. We're on all the social medias, the website. Yeah, somebody's always checking the email.
That was such a great session, Alison. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And let's wrap up. I believe, folks, you enjoyed this session. We talk about marketing, hiring, operations, sales. This is what you need. And when you just listen to this session, try to understand like the one actionable item, just like Alison said today, one actionable item, because you are one actionable item away from success. Thank you so much. We're going to see you next time. And that was another episode of Remodeling Success Podcast. Goodbye.